Alright, so let's get into the reason for this video, building the model. So I'm not going to waste anybody's time. Let me get the camera set up and I'll go over some things. Oh, real quick, while setting this up, I went through all the metal parts. All of the grab irons are missing out of the kit as well. So I sent a message to Tangent to ask for 48 grab irons because there's 4 kits times 12 grab irons is 48. So I need 48 grab irons. So anyways, let me get the camera set up and I'll go over what needs to be done first. Alright, so I took the time to try to figure out where to start on this kit. You know, like if you were a static model builder, like model tanks, airplanes, stuff, you'd have an instruction sheet that says, you know, step 1, 2, 3, and so on. And it'll show you, you know, what parts you need off of what trees and yada, 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 and all that. Well, we don't have that luxury in model trains because typically you know where everything goes and you kind of know what steps to go through. But with kits like this, if you make the wrong move, you could end up making your life very difficult in building these things. So I'm going to start with the bottom. That's the way I always start. And after looking at everything, I figured out, you know, which steps I need to do. First thing I'm going to do, you see all these ejection marks. They don't protrude up, but I can feel a little bit of a burr on the edges where the mold pulls away and kind of pulls a little bit of slough up with it. Not a lot. I mean, realistically, you could get away with not even doing anything. But I'm going to run a vibrating sander over these and just knock them down. It won't really take off any material, like per se as far as thickness goes, but it will just smooth this out. The bottom's fine. Now, when I looked down the edge of this one, there was a slight bow to it. I mean, ever so slightly. There was a bow that went high, low, high. So I just took it and just tweaked it a little bit and dropped it down on my glass, and it sounds solid. And the way you can see that is if you put it on glass and you push on it, you'll see the middle flex, and that'll tell you if there's a bow in it or not. And there was a little bit of flex, so like I said, just put my thumbs here, tweaked it a little bit, dropped it on the glass, and everything seems to work, you know, set flat perfectly. So that one's taken care of. Like I said, I'm gonna sand that down a little bit. Next up, I'm going to cut these protrusions off. I don't need them because I'm not using the electrical part, and it looks like this was a plug or some sort that, you know, there was a part that this pin fit into, and then this thread, you put a screw and thread it into, so it looked like maybe there was some type of plug here. I'm not using the electrical part, so I'm going to cut that flat, and that will allow me to lay this flat and make sure it's, you know, not tweaked. It doesn't look like, I looked down it looks really, really straight. So the next step then, after I take that off, and what I'll do is I will, again, slightly sand this down just to make sure, because I can feel some burrs on top of where all these little tiny holes are and stuff like that. So I'll take all that down. Probably just take a file and run across it. On the bottom, I'll just run a file across these, like a flat file, and just make sure that there's nothing sitting up. Now, to put these together, you see this is the wire chase, all of these cutouts here. This rectangle right here needs to line up with this hole. So this goes like that, like that. So these two parts are not exactly the same width because this bottom part fits up against the inside of the shell to keep it from going too deep into the shell. So what I'll do is I'm going to glue these two halves together. Since I'm not using the electrical parts, I don't need to have this open for the wires to feed through and stuff. So I'll be gluing these two parts together, but when I do that, I'll make sure they're centered. And the way you can make sure they're centered is they're even on the ends, and this cutout here on both ends is flush with each side. So that's how you can figure that they're even. So I'll do that. You can't just do this and line up one edge because you'll have too much overhang on this side. So I'll line those up, and then I'll just run some CA along the edges, and that'll be fine to hold that in. The next step then would be to build the bottom portion of this. So I'll lay this flat on here, and you can't just put this on first. You've got your piping, your train line piping and stuff. It fits into these holes here, 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 and here, and these two here and here. So you got to fit those in there, and you also have to line up. There's some metal pieces. So like when you put this across, there's a channel right here that a metal piece fits through. So you have to figure out where that's going to be, and that's easy because the electrical sockets, I need my optivisors, I can't see anything. These electrical sockets fit into the frame like here, and then another one here, and there's a piece of wire that goes under the frame and then into both sides. So you got to put that in. You got to figure out which pieces go first before you put this frame on, and I can do that by looking underneath this side. So if we look under here, this wire right here goes underneath the frame. This wire that goes to the triple valve goes underneath the frame, and I need to get, there's a piece of photo etch that is a bracket right here that the wire goes through, so I got to get that out, and that goes right, let me see, if this is this way, that goes right here, this little cutout, or this little cavity right here is where that piece of photo etch glues into. I need to glue on, let me see, and that is the only other piece of wire to go. So after I get in this piece of wire, this train line hose, and this I forget what kind of valve that is. It's a handle that you pull out to a retainer valve. It's to pull on the retainer valve. So once I get that in, then I can put this frame in, and I can then work on putting the detail parts on the frame, the air reservoir, the triple valve, and I can get the box in there, and the air, or the actuator, the cylinder, the brake cylinder. I can get that in and on all those parts. And I got all these wire parts to put in here also, and such. So right now I'm going to go sand. Let me get this off of here. Right now I'm going to go sand. Don't want to lose these parts. They stick to my fingers. I'm going to go sand this side. Just get it flat. Just basically kiss it and smooth it out. I'm going to cut these off. Ooh, yeah. I'm going to cut these off and get this all smoothed off. And same with this. Get these little burrs off. And then we'll start assembling all this stuff. On this model, the parts that hang off the bottom, these black parts here, that would be this piece, and this piece. Now Tangent gives you 3 sizes of this large cylinder. They give you an extra long one, or say long, medium, and short. I need the medium on this, so this will go into the parts bag. And then they have this part, which I have to try to figure out. It's a piece of turned brass. I don't know what it is. I have to look on my model to see. Oh, I see it. It's the antenna. This piece right here. So that goes on the roof. So that will go with the roof parts. Or, yeah, there we go. So take care of that. So right now we're going to get all of this onto the frame. Now the draft gearboxes, these draft gearboxes here, which is just almost off the screen, and the fulcrums, they all go on the Caboose body. And Tangent did a really nice job of how this still goes together. So if you look here, this is the draft gearbox. This is the fulcrum with the chain and everything. These fit over the end of the frame here. And when you put it on, you see this little rounded edge right here? That fits right behind the draft gearbox. So you can glue and put everything together on this frame, and you can still just slide it right into the shell and nothing interferes with anything. So you can get all this stuff together, paint it and all that, and get it right on there. Now what I'm going to do, they've painted the bottom here century green. It's gonna be all painted black on this bottom portion. So all of this will be black in here. And I think when I paint it, the sill right here, I think that's going to be black also. There, and these pieces will be black also. So let me go ahead and get this going, and then we'll start doing. Then, wait, after I get this taken care of, then what I'm going to do is I have to go through these plastic parts, and I have to scrape the mold parting line and where they cut them off the trees. They're not too bad. It's not tangent. It's with any manufacturer. Mold parting lines are a part of life with model building. It doesn't matter how good the manufacturer is, you're going to have mold parting line. Some of them take care of it pretty good. Like these ones are pretty good. You really got to turn it in the light to see it. But if you put paint on it, you will see it. There are other manufacturers where they're just horrendous. And I'll tell you, Kato is one of them, especially on the back ends of their hoods. I mean, you can see this mold parting line right there. This mold parting line coming down here. They are not pretty and they're not fun to remove. But on this tangent model, they're not too bad. I don't see anything really on here. I do have to clean up a little bit, a few of the ejector pin marks and stuff, but for the most part, very basic and easy stuff to clean up. Okay, so I've finished what I would call step one. I've got the two frame halves glued together. I've got the train line hose in. It's all glued in. It's all cleaned up. I've scraped off all the mold parting lines along the outside edges. I've got the electrical outlets in. They're straight. I've got the retainer valve in and the triple valve. I've got the bracket for the triple valve, and I've got the piece of wire. I don't know what this would be for, but it's on this caboose. You can see it right there. So I've got that piece in there. So that's all taken care of. Now we can move to step two, which is to put the frame in. Now I've got the frame all cleaned up, you know, some of the slough off of the edges where it comes out of the mold, and they got like a little hairline, little piece of plastic. It's not really flash, but it kind of looks like flash. If you didn't clean it off, you probably wouldn't even see it, but I like to have nice sharp edges. I've cleaned it up really well, and this will go on this way. And the reason why it'll go on this way is because it has the clearance cuts in the frame for all these pieces coming across. So that will go there, that will go there, like that. And make sure that these lines are in here. And okay, so that takes care of that. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to come from the inside, and I can use thin CA because this doesn't sit perfectly flat. Oh, before you put this on, let me take this back off. On the underside here, you can't see it because I've removed them. I've cleaned this whole thing up. There are ejector pin marks all along here and all along here that stick up that'll keep this piece from sitting perfectly flat up against the frame. So I've come in, I've cut them off, then I took a sanding stick and I've sanded everything flat, of course, except for these pins here, 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 and here. Those will stay on there. They just go into these holes here, so that's no big deal. So again, this will go, I'll get this glued on. And once that's glued on, I can start adding all the details that go onto here. All right, so now I have the frame in, and it was a good thing I went and removed all of those ejection pin marks. Also on the bolsters, on the top of the bolsters there, this thing fit down beautifully. So I glued it from the inside with thin CA all the way around. Now on the bolsters I had to glue it from the outside. The stringers, the riveted stringers, those sit down on the frame also. These ones do not. These ones have a gap to the frame here in this one and this one. But these riveted ones, those ones sit flat against the frame. So I went in and used thin CA and glued those down, making sure they're straight across all the way around the bolsters and inside the draft gearbox and on the outside of the draft gearbox on both ends. So this is nice and flat. It's glued down really well, and I can start adding the details to it. So I'll in the next video I'll have on the or the next section of this video, I'll have on this box, the air reservoir, I believe this is a generator, or a part to a generator that goes right here. I'll have this piece on. I'll have the retainer valve on. I don't know if that's a retainer valve or just a relief valve of some sort. And then all of these, oh, you can't see them. I'll have that piece on. I'll have these two pieces on. I'll have some plumbing, these pieces of plumbing on. I'll have this tie rod in, and I'll have these retainer brackets in. Those go across these pieces and stuff. And then that'll take care completely of this bottom part, and I can paint all of this black. I can grit blast it and get it all painted black. Okay, so I think we can call this one step 3. The parts that I put on this step are these pieces. I don't know what they are. Then we got the brake linkages. Or I think I put those on in the last step. Anyways, yeah. And we got the brake linkages, which includes the brake cylinder. We got the air reservoir. We got this, what I believe is the electrical generator or the wheel generator. EJ&E has something like this on their cabooses, where the generator is not on the outside of the axle, but it's on the inside connected to the frame like this, so it's on the inside of the axle. Outside of the wheel. At the journal, it's on the inside on the axle. Now, what else we got? So we got that. We got the box, the equipment box. So that would be what I consider step number 3. Now, we're going to move on to step number 4, which is installing all these wire parts, which are this part, and this part are plumbing to the triple valve. This is the last part that's going to go on, and that goes from this train line here, the train line hose here, to this top hole on the triple valve. So, but before I put that in, I want to put in all the other pipes that go to this. So that's what I'm going to do right now. This is a linkage. Sorry, this is a linkage that goes from here down to here. So that'll have to go in. So that's a linkage piece of wire, and all these are retainer wires. All right, so the underframe is now complete. All the parts are in. The last step, I guess it'd be step number 4, is it? I think so. I'm losing track of the steps, but anyway, the last step is to put all the wire parts in, plus this valve piece here. Now this is the last piece you put in for the plumbing. So the first piece I put in is the short pipe that goes from the inside of the air reservoir to the location just below this piece here. So I'll call this one where this piece of plastic valving goes in is 1. The one to the underneath it is 2. To this side of the number 2 is 3, and this top one's number 4. So we go from the air reservoir on the inside to number 2. You go from the air reservoir on the outside to number 3, and you go from the brake cylinder to number 4. But it's not that I know that by heart. It's because I have this car to look underneath and get all the locations for everything. So I got that in. Then we got the linkage, the long linkage piece. Now you don't want to push this long piece all the way down because you don't want it to make contact with this linkage, and you don't want it to make contact with this linkage. So you want it to be setting up just above that. So I glued this end in first while it was in, and then I adjusted this end so that piece is straight across. And the last pieces that go in are these retainer brackets. These I call them retainer brackets because they're protecting these linkages here. So that's all done. This is ready for grit blasting and then paint. So I'm going to go ahead and grit blast this, and then I'm going to paint the bottom all black. I'll let that dry, and then the floor will get painted hull red, Tamiya hull red. All right, so the frame is now grit blasted and washed in warm soapy water. All the water's been blown off of it, and it's all dry and ready for paint. Interestingly, these details, this one here, and this one here, these are made from metal. I did not know that until after I grit blasted it and all the paint came off. At least they look like, yeah, they're made from metal. But other than that, everything's ready for paint. So I'm going to go ahead and give this all a coat of Tamiya X18 semi-gloss black. All right, so that takes care of this section of the video. I think I did 4 steps. First step was to build all the parts onto the underframe that go underneath the center sill. Then step number 2 was to put the center sill on. Step number 3 was to put all the detail parts that go onto the center sill and so forth. And step 4 then was to put all the plumbing in and the finishing parts. So that takes care of the underframe and painting the inside floor of the interior. Next up will be to clean up the interior detail parts, or the interior piece of the cabinets, the chairs, the bunks, and so forth. Get those painted, clear coated, and then get them installed in the interior. Once those are installed in the interior, then I can put a satin varnish over the entire interior. So I hope you enjoyed that and you have an understanding of, what would be possibly a good step-by-step for building the underframe. And I'm hoping that by the time I finish this model, I have a good overall step-by-step for building one of these. Now the sad part, and I'm not going to get too upset about it as long as the parts come to me, but I'm finding more parts missing. For instance, the coupler lift bar brackets, they're etched parts that the coupler lift bar slips through, and then you glue those brackets to the deck. Those are missing. The actual Caboose coupler lift bars are missing. So I've sent a message to Tangent to please send me those parts, and they're missing for all 4 models. So as I go along, and it's not like I can know what's missing ahead of time because there is no instruction sheet or parts list. I have to find out what's missing as I go. And I found out about the coupler lift bars is missing because they give you a bunch of coupler lift bars, but none of them are Caboose coupler lift bars. They're like boxcar or freight car coupler lift bars. They don't look anything like the ones on the finished kits. So I've asked for those. Of course, the brackets are gone and stuff. So hopefully they'll send those back and I can move on. So anyway, I hope you enjoyed that, and I look forward to getting the interior set up.